By my little Iron Man watch, I've got 104.55. So I've got 10:05 now on my watch. So I'd like to call this the Perth Lake Ontario Annual General Meeting to come to order at 10:05. Madam Secretary, do we have quorum of voting members present?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
So, and if you can just monitor to ensure the quorum is maintained through the balance of this meeting, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any revisions to the agenda that has been posted and made available to members? Seeing there are no revisions, looking for a motion to approve the 2022 Annual General Meeting agenda and a seconder to that motion. So a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Oh, we're raising hands on that, right?
Yeah, we're raising hands. I'll give you a hand count, and okay. we'll try and keep all of these votes to 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Here we have our vote, so we don't have to put hands up. Sorry about that.
I'm going to lower my hand then.
Yeah. Well, I think I can do that automatically.
Okay, so we're voting on this.
Okay.
So to be very clear, us hosts and panelists cannot vote.
Right.
That is the other reason why we recommend having someone else from your club.
All right. Yeah. So if Ed,
I see,
and this poll shows up for Ed to vote, please, you will be the proxy for Niagara Lake Sailing Club.
Owen.
Yes, sir.
I am the only handicapper at National, and I do have a proxy, and I am a panelist.
If there's a tight vote, we'll make a difference to that. But that was an issue that we have had for a while around this.
Okay. No problem. If something comes up at a tied vote or whatever, then we can handle that manually.
So John, same situation. John had asked a question, John Scher of Whitby. The second vote question, please ignore that. That was just in there as an extra item.
Okay. All right. So, and then maybe to address any challenges that may present themselves for Mike and for Sue and potentially for myself if Ed isn't able to vote is if we get to that stage, we will use the raise our hand vote, and it could be manually.
We will take the automatic tally from all of the registered voting participants, and then if it is so close that 2 votes will make a difference,
right,
we'll ask you and count them in. I apologize that takes away any secret ballots, but as we said, there's nothing here we're too worried about.
Yeah, Bill Visser finds himself in a similar position. So anyway,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, again, these are the challenges of doing not in person. And I have to admit that I am not a fan of the lack of social engagement of these meetings. So I look forward to 2023, even more than I look forward to 2022. Okay, are we done on that vote, Owen?
Allison is running the vote.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
So everyone's in agreement, and if we add another 2 to that, that makes it even more so. Okay. And we had 1 abstention.
Yeah, so don't even bother with the manual of us when it won't make a change to it. Okay, so so that was for the agenda. The minutes of the 2021 AGM have been circulated. They're also posted on the PHRF-LO website. Are there any corrections to the minutes that anybody has identified? Okay. Seeing no corrections, looking for a motion to approve the 2021 AGM minutes and a seconder for that.
I'll move that.
Oh, and you see what Ron Austin is posted
Yep.
here? Okay.
I'm taking a look at all of it. John also had the same problem. Oh, so Ron pointed out that the second question had to be answered as well. And yes, we had 23 votes on that. That way you got out of it.
Okay.
So not a big deal.
No, okay. Okay, so
I will second the motion.
Okay. So if we can have the question asked. Give us a second here, folks, and that question will pop up on the screen shortly on the approval of the AGM minutes.
Oh,
You're being recorded, Allison. Careful.
let me Owen, can you try and activate vote number 2
Yeah.
on the polls?
Yeah, the problem is I need to find the poll screen.
It's on the bottom.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now.
Between Q&A and
Yeah.
sharing.
No, actually, I don't have that menu item available right now. My apologies. And Allison, sorry, if I will see if I can grab that. Allison, I do not have the functionality to run the vote right now.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay, can we go ahead with a show of hands while I try and get this fixed, please?
So along the bottom toolbar,
yep.
Second over from the right is a raise your hand option for folks. If you can just click that.
Yeah, we've got 15 hands, 17, 18, 19, 22. We're now well over 50% of our attendees. I assume all the panelists, yes, they're all on. So yeah, this, I don't think we need to waste much time. It is all good.
So remember to lower your hand then after.
Yeah, please. It's a bit of a problem trying to do it for 54 people.
Okay, so we have approved the AGM minutes. So we'll now go to some of the executive reports. So I've had the pleasure of being the president of PHRF-LO for a little over a year now, 2 years. The time seems to bleed into one another. So a couple of things. I'd like to acknowledge the passing of two significant people within the sailing community and certainly within the PHRF-LO. Glenn Freeman from Bronte and Ross Cameron of Kingston both passed away this year. Their contributions to the sailing community are significant. Their contributions to PHRF-LO are even more significant. So we send our sympathies and our condolences to their families and wish them all fair winds. Secondly, Allison, if you can go back one screen.
This one. Oh, hang on.
There we go. So 2021 challenges clearly, you don't need me to summarize what they look like, but I am eternally optimistic that we will have peaked in Omicron in the very near future, and by the time boats are in the water, we will be back to a better semblance of normalcy for all of us. But in the meantime, I'd just like everybody to appreciate how challenging, how challenging this has made it for you running your own boats and your own programs in your own club. Certainly the work of the handicappers has been compromised in their ability to get all of it done. So again, just like every other organization and business that you go into that is facing challenges under the pandemic, we face similar. So please be kind and generous to your handicappers. Tip your hat to them when you see them, help them in whatever way you can, and continue to have them so that they can continue to support the work that we're doing, both at PHRF-LO at the central office and within the work at the local club. Canadian Yachting has an online subscription service. PHRF Lake Ontario is going to be submitting a series of articles talking about really why we race, why PHRF is a quality, good handicapping system, and that we should be proud of the work that we all do in it. One of the key phrases that we all need to be mindful of is that PHRF looks to make an equitable handicapping system, and some people confuse that with equity, and that isn't the case. The differences of the broad areas that we serve sometimes make one boat look like it has a sweetheart rating where it would suffer in other areas based on sea state or predominant wind conditions. But know that Central Council and the local handicappers provide significant input for us to build programs and to build ratings based on observed performance using other fixed factors. Then you'll see examples of that as we go further into the meeting. But I certainly want to acknowledge and thank the hard work of Diana and Sheena in the past year and going forward. The work they do, what you don't see behind the curtain is significant, and it's really, none of it would be possible without the two of them. And additionally, Allison Jones has picked up an incredible amount of work this year working with us to make sure that all this stuff happens. So I thank her, the members of the executive, and the members of Central Council for the work they do. But mostly I thank the local handicappers, that they are the shoulders in which this organization is built on. And I thank them for the work they do and look forward to another year coming forward. That's my report. I will now shift over to Bill Topping, Vice President, for his report. Please, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Larry. Much of what Larry said about the current conditions applies to what I'm responsible for, which is essentially the training seminar, which is traditionally in the end of March. This year, it's going to be March 26th. And there was much discussion as to how we might be able to do this, perhaps a hybrid Zoom meeting and some on-site sail measurement component. But upon the reflections of the government restrictions and all sorts of things, we decided that we would do the seminar in a similar fashion to what we did last year. I'm always interested in having somebody, if you have any suggestions or criticisms or anything that you would like to see covered in this seminar, I would like to invite you to please let me know. In the past, it's been a basic course essentially for new handicappers, though that is not to say that experienced handicappers won't get a lot of information from it. But if this turns out to be too fundamental, there's a possibility of having some of our expert handicappers and chief handicappers and so on, sail measurers, and do some kind of a panel discussion. So let me know if there's anything that any of you feel we need to do, topics that we have not covered, topics that we do cover that we probably shouldn't. And so again, it's going to be March 26th. We'll let you know more of the details as they become available. Just so that you know, for 23, we're going to have the schedule for the 25th of March. And if we could gather enough enthusiasm, I'd love to see it down in Rochester, or alternatively EYC. And then for the 24 seminar, we're going to Toronto East or West, so up towards the big city. So that's pretty much my report. If again, I please, if you have any suggestions, criticisms, comments about what we've done in the past, I'm, as Larry said, I'm very much interested in getting back together. I think the Zoom meetings just lose so much. The contact that we have with the handicappers, the things that we learn, just sitting down to lunch with somebody, you get far more out of it than what you do if you're looking at a computer screen. So again, please let me know, and I'll turn it over back to Larry.
Thank you, Bill. Allison Jones, please, Secretary Treasurer report.
Right. It's great to see so many people have been able to join us today. As you all well know, we had to cancel last year's season championship and also the new Racer Awards. In terms of activities from the office, everybody got mailed out, at least to the main handicappers, all received a Burgee, the PHRF-LO Burgee, and you should have all received an email from Diana. I think I'll just show you the, this is the email that you all should have got. So it shouldn't have been a surprise to everyone, and they should have received them, and hopefully are flying them on your boat when you're down at the club so that your certificate holders know how to get in contact with their club handicapper. There has been some changes this year in the main handicapper, and we really hope that they have passed on the flag to the new standard bearer for their club. If you've got any questions or you have some concerns about this, please contact at a later time Diana to let her know what the story is there. And I understand that some handicappers didn't get them, and they should follow up with their club to see where it's gone to. Hopefully it's not ended up on their RC boat or something like that as a fleet flag. Let me just, oh. There we go, sorry. We did receive a fair number of race results, and the whole analysis is still in process. I'm not sure it's exactly complete. I think Brian will be reporting on that. But those who did submit before the 15th of November, of course, they'll see the credit showing up on their invoice that they're going to get in February. And some of the other things that we're trying to do a bit more work on is figuring out how we can really do a better job of protecting our proprietary information. And the other thing that we've had to struggle with a bit this year is the Zoom meeting, the pros and cons of it. I think it's been an advantage to some of the districts as they've been able to have more participation at their district meetings. And on the other side, I know Larry's a strong proponent, and so am I, of the value of the face-to-face meetings. And I think there's been a lot missed there with us having to go with the Zoom option. So maybe as we get on in the season for this year, we'll be able to have more face-to-face. And now I'm going to move on to the actual financial results that we've had this year. Now, please everybody recognize that our year end is December 31st, and we're like 15 days after it. And it's a fair amount of work making sure that we've covered off on everything. But this is a summary that we have today. And if anybody has any questions, I think that Diana for sure has done a first-class job of managing expenses to make sure that we stay as slim as we can and yet try and get as much work done as possible. Are there any questions out there on that subject? No? Ooh, that's good. Everybody's really happy.
I was just going to say, please remember you can use the Q&A to ask questions.
Yes.
And if we can't answer them immediately, we can do a follow-up at some point.
Yep.
I'd like to add to that I'm quite impressed with the way the cost control happened this year. Looking at the budget and the actuals, I'm quite impressed how well it was managed. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Okay. Part of why we did so well is through the generosity of the Ontario Sailing COVID Make Up Your Losses program and the support that we received of $1,000. And we greatly appreciate Ron Austin's support at the Georgian Bay Sailing Association, because they donated $1,000 to PHRF-LO in last year. And they're donating another $500 this year, which is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much, Ron, for leading that effort. Oh, I see 2 participants raise their hand. Did they want to speak?
There are 3 hands up, 2 now, but they've been up for half an hour and one of them.
Okay.
So again, please use the Q&A.
Yeah. And for the benefit of the members, recognize that our 2021 income is based on what the certificates were issued in 2020 and the invoice that was paid in 2021. And so if you look at on this chart, what I've put down here is what our 2021 deposits were that we were invoiced and received. Now, some people were very generous and overpaid us, but we keep track of it. And when you look at the number of certificates that were issued in 2021 and what the upcharges were, because some, as an example, Brockport had a water level problem and so couldn't launch. It wasn't necessarily due to COVID. And then when the race results credit, that nets out that if we were to fold our tent at the end of the year, okay, that's where that $15,926.05 is what we would owe to the members. Okay, so that's our, if you will, our liability come year end. And looking at what actual money we have in the bank, okay, there's our current account, we have a GIC, there's PayPal, as many of you know, we utilize that. We had prepaid our web hosting service for we had paid last year for 3 years. So that's, it should have, okay, sorry, it should have been an asset. I made a mistake there. I put it in the wrong column. The expenses in terms of contract and salaries, that's a liability at year end. And office expenses that are owing, that's things like phone, etc. And then we're going to get a credit for HST. So I apologize, but obviously I made a boo-boo there that I've just recognized. But overall, we have a residual that we're sitting on in about $50,000. I'll make that correction and post that. Does anybody have any questions?
There is nothing on the Q&A, Allison.
Oh, wonderful.
I think you're clear to go.
Oh, good. Right. So now it's over to the handicapping tribe. Thank you very much.
Okay. So at this point, Brian Thompson, Chief Handicapper, for your report, please, Brian.
Yes, I'm going to try and be brief here, Larry. You know, our whole thing is, as Larry pointed out before, is fairness, that everybody has an equitable number given the performance and the observations of the performance of their boat. At the moment, we have 1,130 certificates out, and 271 of those are non-flying sales only. So I I think we see a little bit of non-sailing starting to grow. I thought that was a very good number for us, and thank Allison and Diana for really working to help get those out. Thank the handicappers for encouraging all the racers to purchase that and getting everybody out on the course. And that's quite and to get the results in, of course, and that's quite a job to do. And getting people off the dock, especially when sometimes the clubs have been closed and so on. And, you know, you may have a crew of people that are in a vulnerable demographic. So that kind of takes away any of the social life that might go on after the race. The trend to NFS, I think, is from the demographics, people getting older, restrictions on from COVID. And new racers who are accomplished sailors. This is my sample is small because I've only seen it from a couple of clubs, but they don't seem to be rushing to get the Spinnaker gear and so on, even though I know some of them in our club are quite capable of doing that, and they're racing in the white sail fleet. Okay, so handicapping changes and projects from Central Council. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to leave that to Adam and Owen, who will be explaining that. And so I think we're very healthy considering 2 years of this COVID thing. And we look forward to good racing this year and hopefully better next year. Larry?
Well, thanks, Brian, and thanks for the work of Central Council that you guys are actively doing. It isn't the easiest situation to gather that and process it, but it's wonderful work. Next on the agenda is Owen Schneider, Assistant Chief Handicapper, for his report, please. Owen?
Okay, sorry, the agenda had our good friend Adam there. I cover all of the areas that are not in the Greater Toronto Area. So that includes the South Shore, Eastern District, Golden Horseshoe, and Rochester. And this year I have helped out a few people with getting initial handicaps, predominantly down the South Shore area. One of them out in Eastern District, and Bill Visser was kind enough to let me attend a meeting, which he probably won't let me do again because I was talking a bit too much. And I occasionally help out some folks at other clubs in the GTA as well. So the majority of the work that the assistants do are on technical matters, and we'll bring that up a little later in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. And now Adam, Assistant Chief Handicapper, for his report, please. Adam?
Yes, very briefly, my activities were concentrated and really the subjects that came up at Central Council. We've been looking at very sparse racing results, so it's very limited what we could do in a matter of reviewing and perhaps adjusting some of the handicaps. Some of the more interesting involvements were reviewing new boats on the lake that were, shall we say, less than traditional, and therefore PHRF had some difficulties with getting together initial assignments, etc. And we are also learning to use some of the newer rules that we accepted for 2021. We're looking at things like keel shapes, etc. But all in all, it was a fairly quiet season. And I guess later on we will be talking about the changes that are in effect for this year and maybe coming up for next year. And that's my report for now.
Thank you, Adam. For everybody online, hopefully you'll understand the structure of PHRF, and at some point an org chart may make some sense, and that's some of the work that's ahead of Exec Council, looking at a strategic plan and ensuring our processes are all correct. But the structure is that bulk of the work is done in the local districts. And we have a number of districts who represent the interest of the folks in those areas, so that you have access to a regional handicapper who then brings that information forward to the central council conversation. So the regional rep is actually the person on the central council. But we have a report from each of our regional reps. We'll start with Bill Visser from the Eastern District, please, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. So we have. Okay. So this year, pretty well, there's three areas really to talk about. One of them is the first one is the Ottawa area. They had a late start to the season, but they were able to get a number of races off. Mostly distance racing on the Ontario side, but they did have some midweek racing eventually. Since Quebec had slightly different rules, CVGR was able to have closer to normal season, so that was good on them. All the clubs in the area experienced a decline in purse certificates, but it's once racing resumes, they think that that will probably come back up, and it's also going to be a focus item for next year. In Lake Ontario on the Canadian side, which is Eastern Lake Ontario and St. Lawrence, again, it was a slow start. There was some midweek racing under, shall we say, some creative formats. There's more distance racing if you looked at the traditional stuff. Some clubs, including my own, just had suspended racing for the entire season. So there were some clubs where just nothing was happening. So that was a participation hit as well. And there were also some access restrictions. For example, down at CFB Trenton, they had to schedule their arrivals in advance, being a military base, and so that made impromptu sailing a little difficult. Lake Ontario, the U.S. side, when possible, they did have racing. As we all know, on the U.S. side, the rules were slightly different from Ontario, but they also experienced crewing issues because of gathering limits in some cases. So overall, we saw a lot more non-flying sail racing across the entire area. So that is very much the high-level recap of our past season, and we're hoping that we can do more next season. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Sue Sproul, Golden Horseshoe District, please, Sue.
Hey, hello. We're really the G&G district. It's Golden Horseshoe and Georgian Bay these days. Again, because of COVID and Doug Ford, we had a delayed start again to the season this year. But once the vaccines rolled out, things very quickly sort of got back to almost normal for the last half of the season. So we got in a lot of racing in most of the clubs, even had a few interclub regattas, managed to get all of that in between waves of COVID. In our district, we had 3 district meetings. We rated 2 new classes of boats and 1 modified boat. And again, we're looking hopefully forward to a full season next year.
Thank you, Sue. Fran Doyle, Rochester District. Fran, are you online?
Yeah, I am. Hi, Larry.
Hi, Fran.
So our district, actually, we presented the idea of an 8-meter box rule, which was passed. Hopefully that will have some success in getting more of the 8 meters, feeling more comfortable racing with us and not having to go through the hassle of all that measurement, as long as they have an up-to-date 8-meter certificate. We rated 4 boats. 3 of them proved that apparently people were reading good old boat during the COVID shutdowns, because they are really old boats that we rated. The summer, we pretty much had very low COVID rates in our district during the summer. And most of the racing went off as normal, except for we had a little bit of problems with low water, go figure. Especially Fairhaven had a lot of trouble getting their boats out this year until later in the season. And we continue to have one other minor problem in that Oswego has always been a major racing harbor for those of us in our district. That and Rochester and Soda seem to be the main hub of hosting regattas, and Oswego is still struggling with a harbor that's under construction and a city that unfortunately demolished their yacht club. So if you have a yacht club, don't let the city take it. That's our report. Thanks.
Thank you, Fran. Andy Sharp, if you're available on the South Shore. Owen, do we know if
I was just going to say he is not logged in.
Okay. All right. I can give you just a brief update if you like on what's happening on the South Shore. Similar issues for us. We're largely a binational district, not unlike Eastern. So we share our time between the US side and the Canadian side. Dealing with the border issue and closed borders proved to be interesting and challenging. So hopefully that situation gets is a little smoother for everybody next year. Again, we saw a slightly less participation rate, largely because of the difficulties of getting out racing. But ideally, it has created some pent-up demand, and next year will be an even better year for us. Call on Jamie. Jamie for Eastern Toronto East. Jamie?
Like everybody else, we've had the same issues across our clubs of participation being down just because of COVID and aging out population. We had one meeting last spring where we rated an old boat, but a new class to us. And talking to some of the handicappers, we're starting to see with the amount of people joining sailing, a lot of older classes that people are going to try and race white sail this year, which is, we're going to see a lot of oddball boats and classes of one boat coming in over the next year or two with all these new sailors. But other than that, Toronto East is pretty much in the same state as everybody else.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. Mike, Toronto West, please. Mike?
Can I share a screen here, or does that cause a problem? Oh, okay. Does that come up for everyone?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Toronto West, same. Some of the clubs were delayed in getting launched because of the COVID and restrictions. NYC did have a fair bit of racing across 3 nights, as did other clubs. Attendance was okay some nights, spotty other nights. And as usual in the Humber Bay area, the wind comes, the wind goes, the wind comes from every direction. And the results, after looking at them, quite a few of the boats or races were dropped from analysis. Let's see here.
Click.
We did have a couple of meetings done by Zoom. Seems to work fine, given the wide area that Toronto West is under. Not having to drive is a great thing. We did 7 initial assignments. That's a list of them in there, not racing boats that people would see coming to mind immediately. And we had a couple of rating reviews. I'd like to thank Owen, Adam, John Crawley for a lot of help this year, because doing the assignments was a bit challenging, finding any kind of relevant race history comparison. And the few times we found it, we found the results to be all over the map with quite wide suggested perf ratings. And that's all the notes from Tor West.